It was a Tuesday afternoon when I first noticed the change. The door swung open, and there she was, my wife, walking in with her usual smile. But something was different. The spark that had once lit up her eyes seemed dim, her movements a little slower, and her gaze a little more distracted. I knew my wife well. I'd loved her for years, since we were teenagers, and I could always tell when something was amiss. Yet, I couldn't quite place my finger on it. For months, I had been too focused on my work and the never-ending demands of life to really pay attention. I was a doctor. The hours were long, and the pressure was immense, but that was my job, and I took pride in it. I was doing everything I could to provide for her. But then came the subtle shifts, the moments where I'd catch her glancing at her phone with a faraway look in her eyes, her laughter becoming more distant, her smiles less frequent. At first, I brushed it off as stress from her job. She had her own career, and maybe it was just one of those phases. She was a good woman, dependable, loving, and always there when I needed her. But that Tuesday, it felt different. We had dinner together, like we always did, but the conversation was empty. She was there, physically, but she wasn't really with me. When she went to bed that night, I stayed up, looking at the calendar on my phone. It had been weeks since we'd had any real connection, and I felt a gnawing unease creeping into my thoughts. It was something I hadn't felt in years. My gut was telling me something wasn't right, but I refused to believe it. After all, she was my wife. We had built a life together, and I had always trusted her completely. I woke up the next morning with a sense of dread in my chest. I couldn't explain why, but something felt off. I brushed my teeth, got dressed for work, and tried to shake it off. But it lingered, hanging over me like a dark cloud that I couldn't escape. It wasn't until that evening that the truth began to reveal itself. It was subtle at first. My wife's phone was left on the kitchen counter, face up. I don't know why I looked at it. It wasn't something I would usually do. But as I glanced down, a message popped up on the screen. It was from someone named D, and the message read, "I can't wait to see you again tonight. The last time was incredible." I froze. I felt my heart race in my chest. This couldn't be happening. My mind reeled, but I couldn't deny what I saw. The text was too clear, too intimate. The same name, D, appeared in her phone again and again. And every message was filled with promises of intimacy and longing. I wanted to confront her right then and there. But I didn't. I couldn't. I needed to know more. That night, sleep wouldn't come. My mind was on a loop, circling the same thoughts over and over again. The messages on her phone, those texts from D, weren't just casual exchanges. They were intimate, filled with longing, like something was brewing under the surface that I had no part in. The betrayal, however small it seemed in the grand scheme, tore at me. I wanted to confront her, but I couldn't yet. I needed to know more. I needed to be sure. The next few days passed in a blur. Work was the same, patients to see, charts to review, surgeries to perform. But my mind, it was elsewhere. Every glance at her seemed different, like I was seeing her for the first time, questioning everything about her. She had always been transparent with me, or so I thought. Now, everything felt like a lie. The texts, the secrecy, the sudden distance between us, it was all too much. Her behavior was subtle, but it was there. She'd always been so free with her phone, texting me sweet things during the day or sharing her thoughts. But now, she kept it close, almost as if she was guarding it from me. And she was more distant, colder, as though she was mentally elsewhere every time we spoke. I tried to ignore it at first, but soon I couldn't. One evening, as she took a shower, I made the decision. I knew it was wrong, that I was crossing a line, but I couldn't live with the uncertainty anymore. I picked up her phone. The passcode was the same as always. My hands shook as I scrolled through her messages. There were texts from D, the same intimate messages I had seen earlier. And it wasn't just casual chit-chat. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one message said. Another read, "I miss you so much. I can't stop thinking about you." My heart hammered in my chest. This wasn't just an affair. This was something serious. She had been hiding it from me, and I had no idea how long it had been going on. Then it hit me. There was one person who had been present in her life recently. Dr. Harris. She'd been seeing him for her checkups. At first, I hadn't thought much of it. But now, his name lingered in my mind. Was it possible? Could it really be him? I wasn't ready to confront her just yet. There was too much I didn't know. I had to gather more pieces of the puzzle before I could face the truth. but a sinking feeling in my gut told me that the answer I was looking for was right in front of me. The days that followed were nothing short of agonizing. I could no longer shake the thought that something was terribly wrong. Every interaction with her felt like I was walking on a tightrope, trying to keep everything normal while my mind screamed for answers. I had caught a glimpse of the truth, but it was still a blur, just out of reach. I had to dig deeper. I had to know who Dee really was and why she was hiding him from me. I started paying closer attention to everything, analyzing her every move like a detective in a movie. She had always been a little secretive with her phone, but this was different. She would step out of the room to take calls, her voice soft, almost too soft when she spoke. When I asked her about her day, her responses were clipped, distracted, as if she wasn't really there. And when she was home, she was often glued to her phone, only pausing when I walked into the room. There were times when I'd catch her staring at it, her face betraying a hint of guilt before she quickly turned away. I tried not to let my suspicions show. I didn't want to confront her without knowing the full truth. It was a dangerous game I was playing, walking that fine line between ignorance and discovery. But the more I observed, the clearer it became that I wasn't imagining things. Something was off. A few days later, I overheard part of a conversation as I walked past the living room. Her voice was quieter than usual, but I could hear the urgency in her tone. "I miss you," she said. "Can't wait to see you again tonight." It was Dee. I knew it. I had no doubt now. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? Had I missed the signs all this time? I felt sick to my stomach. My wife, the woman I had trusted more than anyone else in the world, had been lying to me. And I had no idea how deep it went. The next night, I decided to take action. I waited until she had fallen asleep, then snuck into her office. I started searching through her things, looking for any clue that might give me more information. Her desk drawer was locked, but I managed to find a key hidden in a drawer beneath the sink. Inside, I found more than I expected: receipts from hotels, gifts wrapped in tissue paper, and a small bottle of perfume I didn't recognize. I froze. This wasn't just an affair. This was a betrayal that went beyond anything I had imagined. I knew, without a doubt, that Dr. Harris was involved. But now, I needed to know how far this had gone, and just how much my wife had been hiding. The weight in my chest was becoming unbearable. Every piece of evidence I found only deepened my sense of betrayal. The perfume in her drawer, the hotel receipts, they were all adding up to one conclusion, one I never thought I'd have to face. My wife, the woman I had shared so much with, had been lying to me, hiding something far deeper than I could have imagined. The receipts from hotels and other cities were the hardest to ignore. Each one was dated on the nights she claimed to be working late, but the locations were miles from home. My mind raced. I wasn't just dealing with a few late nights. This was an affair, a secret life that I had no idea about. The worst part? The receipts were in different names, like she was going out of her way to cover her tracks. Every small clue fed the growing storm inside me. I wasn't ready to confront her yet, not without more answers. Then there were the phone calls. I could hear her voice, softer, almost soothing, as she whispered words I was no longer a part of. When she was with me, it was business as usual, polite, distant, but nothing too alarming. But when she thought I wasn't paying attention, I could hear the way she'd speak with him, with Dee. The change in her tone was unmistakable, almost affectionate. It was as though she was a different person entirely, one who didn't belong to me anymore. Each night, after she'd gone to sleep, I would take to her office again. I couldn't stop myself. I needed to know everything. That's when I found the texts, more of them, each one more revealing than the last. And yet, it wasn't until I scrolled through her social media that it truly hit me. There, posted months ago, was a photo of her and Dr. Harris at some conference. They were too close, his arm around her shoulder. But it wasn't the photo that stunned me. It was the caption, "With my favorite person in the world." I froze, my heart sinking. She'd said that to me before, countless times. It had always been a phrase that felt so personal, so ours. But now, here she was, using it for him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to confront her right then, to demand answers. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized I didn't know the full story. I had to get the entire picture to understand the full extent of the betrayal before I faced her. The next few days felt like a slow burn. I was constantly on edge, unable to focus on anything. My mind was consumed by the idea of what I had uncovered. The evidence was clear, but something still held me back from confronting her. Was it the hope that I was wrong? Or was it fear? Fear of what I might learn if I dug any deeper? Either way, I knew I couldn't go on like this. The distance between us was growing, and it was only a matter of time before the truth came out, whether I was ready for it or not. I began to notice her habits even more closely. The way she moved around the house, the way she held her phone, the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I started feeling like a stranger in my own home. Every word she spoke felt like it carried an underlying meaning that I couldn't decipher. I had always thought that we knew each other inside and out, but now, it felt like she was a completely different person. The tension in the house was palpable. Every time she left the room, I found myself instinctively reaching for her phone, checking her messages again. I couldn't help it. I had become obsessed with finding out more. But every time I found something new, it was like another layer of my trust had been ripped away. And still, no answers. I needed to know who Dee was, what kind of relationship they had, and how long it had been going on. I had to confront her, but I was terrified. That night, I decided to follow her. She had mentioned an errand she needed to run. No details, just a vague excuse. It wasn't unusual for her to step out for an hour or two. But this time, something told me that it wasn't just a quick trip to the store. She was meeting him. I was sure of it. I waited for her to leave, then followed at a distance. My heart raced as I drove behind her, keeping my distance, watching her make a turn I didn't expect. She stopped at a small cafe, a place I had never seen her go to before. I parked a few blocks away and waited. For what felt like an eternity, I sat there, watching the entrance. Then, just as I feared, I saw him, Dr. Harris, walk into the cafe, a smile on his face. My stomach dropped. There it was. I finally had the confirmation. I sat in my car, watching the two of them through the cafe window, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I couldn't look away. She had no idea I was out there, no idea that I was watching her as she sat with him. So close, so comfortable. They weren't just talking. No, there was something more intimate in the way they interacted. The way he leaned in a little too close, the way she smiled that smile, the one she used to give me, as she reached for her coffee, her fingers brushing his hand lightly. I saw it all. I saw how easy it was for them to pretend that no one was watching, to live in that moment. It sickened me. I had expected anger, but what I felt instead was numbness. The pain had already set in, and now it was just a matter of understanding the scope of the betrayal. I had known it, deep down, but seeing them together, seeing the chemistry that had been growing between them for months, crushed me in a way I couldn't quite put into words. I stayed there, motionless, for what felt like hours. The minutes ticked by slowly, painfully. Every laugh they shared, every soft word between them, felt like another stab to the heart. I had always trusted her, more than anyone else, and yet, she had given her trust to someone else. Dr. Harris wasn't just a doctor. He was her confidant, her lover, her other man. The longer I watched them, the more I realized just how much I had been in the dark. She had kept up the appearance of a loving wife, the woman I thought I knew so well. But now, I saw that I didn't know her at all. She was living two lives, and I was just a part of the one she showed the world. Eventually, I couldn't watch any longer. I turned off the engine, slumped back in my seat, and closed my eyes. The flood of emotions was overwhelming. Anger, betrayal, a sense of loss. But underneath it all, there was something else. Something darker. This was my marriage, my life, being torn apart, and I had been blind to it. I couldn't keep pretending. I had to confront her, but not just yet. Not until I was ready. And right now, I wasn't sure if I'd ever be ready to face her again. I drove home in a haze, my mind racing. The cafe, the laughter, the glances they shared, it was all I could see, hear, feel. It replayed over and over in my mind, a loop I couldn't escape from. When I walked through the door, she was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine as though nothing had changed. Her smile was the same, but her eyes, I could see it now. They held a secret, one that I wasn't a part of. She looked up when I entered, surprised to see me back so early. "What's wrong? You look pale," she said, setting the magazine down. I didn't know how to respond. How could I? I had just seen the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, sitting with another man in a cafe, sharing private moments, moments that should have been mine. But I couldn't tell her that. Not yet. Just tired, I muttered, hoping my voice wouldn't crack. I walked past her, the need to be anywhere but in the same room as her overwhelming me. My heart was heavy, and my chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe properly. Every time I thought about her with him, my body tensed, my skin prickled. She didn't question me further. I had become an expert at hiding my emotions, pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. But this time, I didn't even want to pretend. I wanted to shout, to accuse her of everything. But I held back. I had already seen enough. I didn't need to hear her lies, her excuses. The evidence was right in front of me. As the evening wore on, she tried to make small talk, asking about my day, about work. But I couldn't engage. The words felt like poison in my mouth. I couldn't look at her the way I used to. There was no warmth between us anymore, only a growing chasm of distrust. I retreated to the study, where I tried to focus on anything other than the truth. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had been so blind, so naive. She had been slipping away from me, little by little, and I hadn't seen it. Later that night, when she came to bed, I lay still, pretending to sleep. I could feel her shift beside me, the warmth of her body just inches away, but I couldn't bring myself to touch her. The thought of it made my stomach turn. She wasn't the same woman anymore, and I wasn't the same man who had loved her with everything he had. Sleep didn't come. The silence between us was deafening. The days dragged on like an endless cycle of quiet tension and false normalcy. I went to work. I came home. We shared meals, conversations, but it was all so mechanical now. I could barely look at her without seeing the image of her and Dr. Harris together. I hated myself for allowing it to consume me, for allowing the seeds of doubt to sprout into something that felt too real to ignore. But how could I stop? How could I just let it go? My mind was too full, too frantic. One night, after yet another quiet dinner, I found myself standing in the living room, staring at the door. I didn't know what I was doing or why I was even standing there. I didn't have a plan, but I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when I knew the truth. The truth I had seen with my own eyes. She was upstairs, getting ready for bed. I had overheard her in the bathroom, talking to someone on the phone. The soft murmurs of her voice, followed by that familiar, intimate laugh. I couldn't hear the words clearly, but I didn't need to. I could picture it in my head. Her voice, her laughter, all directed at him. It was like a slap in the face. I thought I could handle the waiting, the pretending, but I realized I was fooling myself. I couldn't keep going like this. I couldn't pretend to be the man she still loved when everything about me felt like a lie. I grabbed my jacket from the chair and walked out the door, unsure of where I was headed, but certain I needed to be away from her. Away from the house that had once been our home. I needed air. I needed space. But more than anything, I needed clarity. As I walked through the neighborhood, the cool air biting at my skin, I couldn't shake the feeling of being trapped. I had given her everything. My heart, my trust, my loyalty. And this was how she repaid me. I had built a life for us, only to watch it crumble in front of me. I thought I was strong enough to take whatever came my way, but this was different. This was a betrayal I couldn't just fix with a few words. This was a wound too deep to heal. I walked for hours, trying to clear my head, but the longer I walked, the more I realized I couldn't run from it forever. I couldn't outrun the truth. By the time I returned home, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't keep living this lie. The confrontation was inevitable, and it was coming sooner than I had ever imagined. I stood at the door, hand on the knob, my heart hammering in my chest. It felt like everything was leading to this moment. The moment when I would finally confront her. No more pretending. No more hiding from the truth. I had seen enough, felt enough, to know there was no way I could continue living in this silent prison. The house was eerily quiet, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. She was upstairs, presumably in bed, or so I thought. I had no idea how to begin. How do you ask the person you've spent years with, the person you've built a life with? How do you ask them if they've been lying to your face for months? How do you confront them about something so devastating? I slowly made my way up the stairs. My feet felt like they were dragging through molasses, each step heavier than the last. When I reached the top, I hesitated at the doorway to our bedroom. I could hear her moving around inside, the soft rustling of sheets. She was probably pretending to sleep, acting like nothing was wrong, like everything was fine. I opened the door. She was sitting up in bed, the faint glow of her phone illuminating her face. She looked at me, a bit startled, but quickly masked it with a smile. "Hey," she said, a little too cheerfully. I stood there for a long moment, just looking at her. The woman I had loved for so long, the woman I had trusted, the woman who had been betraying me in ways I never could have imagined. A cold fury began to rise in me, but I held it back, focusing on the calm I knew I had to maintain. "I know," I said quietly. She froze. Her smile faltered. "What do you mean?" I took a step closer. "I know about you and Dr. Harris. I know about the messages, the late-night phone calls, the lies, everything." The room fell silent. Her eyes widened, but she didn't say anything at first. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, trying to figure out what to say, how to cover her tracks. But she knew, just as I did, that the truth was out in the open now. There was no way to hide it any longer. "You don't understand," she finally whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want any more excuses. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely audible, yet full of raw emotion. "How long have you been seeing him behind my back?" She didn't answer immediately, but the look in her eyes said everything. It was all I needed to hear. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. My mind was spinning, my heart racing, but I forced myself to stay still, to stay composed. I wasn't going to let her lie to me again. Not this time. The truth had already come crashing in, and I needed to hear it all, no matter how much it hurt. Her eyes darted around, avoiding mine, and I saw the guilt in her expression. She wasn't looking at me as the man she loved anymore. She was looking at me like I was a stranger, someone she needed to placate, to calm down. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words got caught in her throat. She knew what I wanted. She knew what I needed to hear, but she wasn't ready to say it. "I don't know what you want me to say," she finally whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "I never meant for it to happen this way." I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me. "You never meant for it to happen? Are you kidding me?" I took a step closer to the bed, my fists clenched at my sides. "How many times did you lie to me? How many times did you tell me everything was fine when you were sneaking around behind my back with him?" Her face crumpled, the tears she had been holding back starting to fall. "It wasn't like that," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I wasn't trying to hurt you, I swear. But I felt so alone. You were always so busy with work, and I needed someone. Dr. Harris, he was there for me. He listened to me in ways that you stopped doing." Her words were like daggers, each one piercing through me more deeply than the last. "So you turned to him?" I asked, my voice colder than I meant it to be. "Instead of talking to me, instead of trying to fix our problems, you ran to someone else?" She shook her head, her hands trembling. "I didn't want it to go this far. It just happened. One thing led to another. I wasn't looking for this. I never wanted to hurt you." I felt a cold emptiness settle in the pit of my stomach. I had always thought we were stronger than this, that we were the kind of couple who could talk through anything. But she had betrayed me, not just physically, but emotionally. She had sought solace in another man when I wasn't looking, when I thought everything was fine. "I need to know how long this has been going on," I demanded, my voice hard. "How long have you been seeing him?" She wiped her eyes, unable to meet my gaze. "It started a few months ago, after you had that surgery. I didn't know how to handle everything. I was scared, and I felt so alone. I felt my world shift beneath me. A few months? That was the same time I'd been recovering, dealing with my own struggles, while she found comfort in someone else." I turned away from her, my mind racing. It was more than just an affair. It was everything I had feared, everything I had ignored. And now, I didn't know where to go from here. Her confession hung in the air like a heavy fog, and I couldn't escape it. The weight of her words settled deep in my chest, suffocating me. I didn't know what to say, what to feel. My mind was a whirlwind, the past few months flashing before my eyes. The moments when I thought everything was fine, the conversations I thought we had shared, the intimacy that had slowly been slipping away. And now I was left with the cold, bitter truth. The silence stretched on, and the tears streamed down her face, but I couldn't find it in me to comfort her. The woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, had crossed a line that I could never come back from. I could see the regret in her eyes, but it didn't change what had happened. It didn't change the fact that while I had been struggling to recover, she had found solace in someone else's arms. I turned back to face her, the anger inside me rising like a tidal wave, but I held it in check. What good would it do? Yelling, screaming, none of it would change anything. The damage had already been done. So, you've been seeing him for months now, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. And all this time, I thought I was the one you were confiding in, the one you could trust. But instead, you ran to him. She nodded, her face twisted with guilt. I never meant for it to get this far. I thought I could stop, that I could fix things with you, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what to do. I shook my head, unable to process it all. How could you not know how to fix things with me? I was right here. All you had to do was talk to me. I would have listened. I always would have listened. Her sobs deepened, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. Instead, I turned away, walking out of the room and into the living room. I couldn't be near her right now. I needed space. I sat on the couch, my head in my hands, trying to gather my thoughts. The anger was still there, but it was slowly being replaced by a deep, hollow emptiness. I didn't know who I was anymore, or what this marriage was anymore. She had shattered everything I thought we had, and I wasn't sure how we could ever put it back together. I couldn't just move on from this. I knew that. But what was I supposed to do now? Could I ever forgive her? Could we ever rebuild? The weight of the decision loomed over me, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't have any answers. The hours dragged on as I sat in the living room, the silence between us oppressive. She had come downstairs after a while, but she didn't say anything. She just sat at the edge of the couch, looking at me with wide, regretful eyes, waiting for something, waiting for me to tell her what to do next. But I didn't have the answers. I wanted to scream at her, demand to know how she could betray me like this. How could she, after everything we'd been through, the history we shared, the promises we made? I had given her all of me, and now I felt like a fool. A part of me wanted to walk away from it all, pack up my things and leave this house behind, the house that used to feel like home. The thought of staying, of pretending that we could go back to the way things were, felt impossible. But there was another part of me, the part that still loved her, that couldn't simply walk away from the years we had spent together. We had built something, a life, a future. And yet, all of that felt like a lie now. The memories we had shared, the moments we had cherished, they felt tainted. Every laugh, every kiss, every quiet evening together, they all seemed like falsehoods, built on a foundation of deceit. I couldn't keep living in limbo. I needed to make a decision, one way or another. But what choice did I have? Could I ever forgive her? Could I ever trust her again after what she had done? I stood up abruptly, the movement making her flinch. I walked to the window, looking out into the night. The city lights shimmered in the distance, but I felt a million miles away from it all. The future that had once seemed so certain was now an abyss. I don't know what to do, I muttered to myself, the words sounding hollow. She had followed me to the window now, standing just behind me. Please, say something. Anything. I'll do anything to make this right. I could hear the desperation in her voice, but it didn't move me the way it should have. I had heard these pleas before, in different forms. Promises to change, to do better, to make amends. But those words had lost their meaning. Finally, I turned to face her, the frustration boiling over. How can you expect me to just forgive you? How can you expect me to just move past this? I swallowed hard, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. You've broken something inside me. I don't know if I can fix it. Her eyes filled with tears again, and she reached out, her hands trembling as they hovered in the air between us. But I stepped back, needing the distance. She had crossed a line, and no matter how much she wanted to fix things, I wasn't sure it was possible. I don't know if I can fix us, I whispered, the words more painful than I thought they'd be. The weight of my words seemed to hang in the air, thick with finality. I could see the panic in her eyes, the desperate pleading that had begun to seep into her every movement. She took a step toward me, then stopped, unsure. I couldn't blame her. How could she know what to say, what to do, after everything that had happened? But what could I say to her now? What words were left? I had spent so much time wondering if I could forgive her, but now I realized the question was never whether I could forgive. It was whether I wanted to. Could I really go back to her after everything she had done? After everything she had hidden from me? I'm sorry, she whispered, almost as if it were the only thing she knew to say. I never wanted to hurt you, never wanted to destroy what we had. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the truth was staring me in the face. I wasn't the person she turned to when things got hard. I wasn't the one she came to for comfort. Instead, it was someone else. Someone I had trusted. Dr. Harris. Sorry doesn't fix it, I said, the words coming out colder than I intended. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you lied to me for months. That you let someone else into our lives without me even knowing. Her lip quivered as she stepped back. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could handle it. But it all got out of control. I love you. I swear I do. I closed my eyes, taking a slow breath. Love. The word echoed in my mind, but it didn't feel like it used to. It wasn't enough. It couldn't be enough to fix the damage. I could see it now, the cracks that ran through everything we had built. And as much as I wanted to believe we could repair them, I wasn't sure we could. I wasn't sure I could. You broke my trust, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. And I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I don't know if we can fix this. The tears in her eyes spilled over as she stepped closer. Please, don't give up on us. We can make it work. Please. I cut her off, holding up a hand. I had heard all the pleas, all the promises. But in the end, promises are empty if they aren't backed up by actions. And her actions had shattered everything. I had to make a choice. A choice I wasn't ready to make, but one that had been forced upon me. This wasn't a simple fight. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal. And as much as I loved her, I couldn't pretend it didn't matter. I think it's over, I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. The look on her face was enough to break me, but I couldn't let myself go there. Not anymore. I turned away, walking toward the door, needing air, needing space. I couldn't stay here with her anymore, not with the weight of everything between us. I didn't look back. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to leave. The house that had once felt like a sanctuary, a home, now felt like a prison. Every inch of it, every corner, reminded me of the life I thought I had. The life I had worked so hard to build. And yet, here I was, walking away from it all. From her. I found myself driving aimlessly, not caring where I went, just needing to put distance between me and the devastation I had left behind. The city, the streets, they blurred together in a haze as I tried to silence the chaotic thoughts racing in my mind. The questions, the doubts, the broken pieces of everything we had. Nothing made sense anymore. I parked the car on the side of the road and sat there for what felt like hours. The air outside was crisp, but the cold didn't reach me. Inside, it was worse, colder than any winter night. The numbness had crept in and settled deep, and I couldn't shake it. What had happened? How had we ended up here? I kept asking myself that question, replaying every moment, every conversation, every sign that I had missed. I should have seen it. I should have noticed something. But it wasn't my fault. She had lied to me. She had built this secret life behind my back, and now, the life I thought I knew was gone. I sat there, immobilized by the weight of it all, until the phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from her. Please, it said, please come home. We can talk. We can fix this. The message was simple, but the impact was more than I could bear. How could she think we could fix this? Could I even fix this? I wanted to believe that somewhere deep down, there was still a chance, still something worth saving. But the truth kept flooding back, and I couldn't ignore it. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned off my phone and sat back in the car, staring out at the city lights. The truth was, I was afraid. Afraid of what the future held. Afraid of what I would become if I stayed in this marriage, trapped by the pain and the lies. I needed to find a way forward. A way to move past this. But first, I needed to face the reality of what had happened. I couldn't hide from it any longer. I couldn't pretend to be the person I was before. Something had been broken, and I wasn't sure I could ever fix it. After a long while, I started the car again. I didn't know where I was going, but for the first time in days, I felt like I was moving toward something, toward the unknown. I was leaving the past behind. And no matter how hard it was, I had to face it. The road stretched out before me, dark and empty. The headlights of my car illuminated the path ahead, but everything felt uncertain, like I was driving into a fog I couldn't see through. I had no destination, no plan. I just needed to keep moving, to escape the suffocating weight of everything I had left behind. I didn't know what was next. All I knew was that my life had been turned upside down, and I had to find a way to rebuild it, piece by piece, even though I had no idea how to start. The marriage I had believed in, the woman I had loved, they were no longer what I thought they were. The betrayal had shattered everything. and there was no going back to the way it was. As the miles passed, I thought about the future, my future. I had spent so much of my life focused on her, on us, that I had lost sight of myself. I had lost sight of what made me happy, of what I needed. I couldn't let this one betrayal define me, define my life. I was more than the man who had been cheated on. I had to remember that. I had to rebuild myself. The city faded behind me, and the familiar world I had known felt distant, like it was no longer mine. The quiet of the car enveloped me, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to feel something other than anger and hurt. I felt a strange sense of calm. It was as if, by leaving, I was shedding the weight of the past, allowing myself to move forward, even if I didn't know where I was going. I pulled over to the side of the road and sat there, staring out at the night sky. It was vast and empty, much like the space inside me. But in that emptiness, I also found a sense of freedom. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't stay in that house, living a lie. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay when I knew it wasn't. I had to find myself again, rediscover who I was, and rebuild. Maybe alone, maybe not. For now, I was taking the first step into the unknown. And somehow, despite the fear and the uncertainty, it felt like the right one. As I started the car and drove away into the night, I let go of the past. The future was wide open, and for the first time in months, I could finally breathe.